Thanks to the grace of heaven, virtuous masters, grand predecessor and predecessor, thanks to the compassion of transmitters and everyone here for giving me the opportunity to speak today's topic on Liao Fan's 4 lessons. I would also like to thank to the people who translated the commentary in the Chinese to English in hoping to reach out more of the non-Chinese speaking groups. So who and what is Liao Fan's 4 lessons? Liao Fan's 4 lessons was originally written in Ming Dynasty of China by Mr. Liao Fan Yuan from 1533 to 1606. His birth name was Yuan Biao, 字庆元, then changed to Yuan Huang, 字坤仪. His another name given by the Zen master Yungu was Xue Hai. He was from Wujiang County, Jiangsu province. He liked to study ancient and modern books on astrology, law, water conservancy, mathematical, armament, politics, geomancy. That's related to feng shui, right? Okay. Oh, oops, here. Yeah, so I went on. I was curious what that is, and that's what it. Yeah. Right. So in the old days, that's what they use. It looks so complicated. I have no idea what it's doing. Okay, so they still use it. Some of the feng shui masters, yeah. Okay. So the book was intended to teach his son, Tian Qiyuan, how to recognize the truth of fate, how to tell good from evil, and the method for correcting one's faults and practicing kind deeds. It also provided a living proof of the rewards and outcomes of people who practice kind deeds and cultivate virtue and humility. Relating from his own experience at changing destiny, Mr. Yuan himself was a living embodiment of his teachings. It is a book which is not only precious to an individual's spiritual needs, but is also capable of transforming unhealthy attitude in today's society. In the old days of Chinese civilization, studying was held in the highest regard, whilst all other occupations were considered low class. The Chinese government selected its official through a system of meritocracy. Many levels of imperial examinations were given to all who wished to take them. It was very difficult to pass these tests, and one had to be very learned and talented in writing essays. Those who did pass had the chance to advance to high government positions and live a life of wealth and prominence. People who couldn't pass the examination were not recognized no matter how smart or able they were otherwise. That was the reason why many youths of the time turned to studying for the exams in hopes for the prosperous future.
Yeah, just a thing. In the past, the studying that they used to do the tests and all that stuff, not like literature, physics, and whatever. No, none of that stuff. It's basically just just classics. Well, it may be old, like a book of old, something like that, etc. It's it has nothing to do with regular, like studies.
Okay, so let's look at what is Liao Fan's 4 lessons. Lesson 1 is about learning to create destiny or fate. Lesson 2, ways to reform. Lesson 3, ways to cultivate kindness. Lesson 4, the benefits of virtue humility. Mr. Liao Fan Yuan taught his son, Tianqi, not to be bound by fate, but rather to put forth his best effort in practicing kindness and cutting off evil. One should not reject doing a kind act simply because it seems to be a minute goodness, or reject doing a kind act simply because it seems to be a small evil. If one practices in a proper manner, it is assured that one's destiny can be changed. It is often said, refraining from all evil and practicing all forms of kindness brings about the dispersion of disasters and the coming of fortune. This is the principle behind creating one's destiny. So, here goes a story. Liao Fan's father passed away when he was young, and the mother persuaded him to learn medicine instead of becoming a scholar. His mother said to him, "Learning medicine will be a good way to support yourself and also to help others. Besides having a skill on hand, you will never have to worry about making a living, and you can even become famous through your medical skills." This was always been an ambition your father had for you. One day, he met an elder who had a look of a sage at Ciyun, the Compassion Cloud Temple, who said that he is destined to become a government official and can attain the rank of erudite, right? Erudite, that's how you pronounce it.
Erudite? That's like somebody who's very learned.
Exactly. You're the first level scholar next year and wonder why he was not studying for the exam. Yes, that's showing like a profound knowledge, right? So Mr. Kong, I was like wondering who's Mr. Kong, right? So it's not Confucius, okay? It's not him. This is somebody happened to also have the same last name, Kong. Okay, so Mr. Kong, who came from Yunnan province, inherited the knowledge of Mr. Sao, okay, who developed the art of prediction very well. By calculations, he is supposed to pass it on to Liao Fan. So from first look, he's already okay. This is something that's precious. I believe this should go to you. And at the age of Liao Fan, he was still a teenager at the time. Okay. Therefore, he led Mr. Kong to his home and told his mother about him. Mother told him to treat him well and said, since Mr. Kong is good at predicting the future, he must also know our past. Let's ask him and test his reliability. As a result, he found Mr. Kong's calculation to be very accurate, even in very small cases. So after hearing his words of advice, he once again thought about studying. He then became Mr. Yu's student, a friend of his cousin. Once again, Mr. Kong made a prediction for him. He said, as a student, you will place 14th in the county examination, 71st at the regional exam, and 9th at the provincial examination. So he already not only you'll make it, he'll know what number rank. Yeah. Moreover, Mr. Kong predicted Liao Fan, who will pass such and such a test in such and such a year, will become a civil servant in such as a year, and in such year will get a promotion. Finally, he will be appointed as a magistrate, right? Magistrate in Sichuan province for 3.5 years. Will resign and return home at age 53. Will die around 1 o'clock in the morning of August 14th.
Wow.
It's a pity that he will not have a son. So his whole 流年, his whole entire life has been predicted. Yeah. Okay, so Liao Fan wrote everything down. and believe that all came in due time. Even the length of one's life is predestined. He began to view everything in a more detached manner and ceased to seek gain and profits. Okay. All right. So, this one. Wait, maybe it's okay. So after being selected as an imperial student in the Beijing University, he lost his interest in books, but was more interested in meditation before entering the National University of Nanjing. He paid a visit to the enlightened Zen master Yungu at Qixia Mountain. All right. So they sat face to face in the Zen hall for 3 days and nights without even falling asleep. Master Yungu questioned him, saying, "The reason why mundane people are unable to attain sagehood is because they have too many wandering and false thoughts running through their minds. In our 3-day meditation, I have not observed the slightest wandering thought arising you. Why is that so?" Liao said, "Mr. Kong has clearly," so he told him the story, "Mr. Kong had clearly predicted the entire outcome of my life. I have seen that the time of life, death, promotion, and failure are all predestined. There is no use or need for me to think about it or to desire anything."
Yeah, just like Fang Xia.
Right?
He's
Is that-
Fang Xia.
but this is
Let go. He's like,
yeah,
yeah.
but this is a little different. Yeah, this is sort of yeah. So okay. So he said, "That's why you have not seen me giving rise to a single wandering thought."
Right.
I was like, okay, then maybe that's good, but that's not why.
He just gave up.
Right, he gave up completely.
Right.
So in this situation is Wan Kong. So there's nothing existed.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Fang Xia.
So here, at the same time, he's bounded to his fate.
Right.
That's what happened. All right. So the master said, right, "I thought you were someone of remarkable capabilities. Now I realize you are nothing but a common mundane person." So Liao Fan was all confused. He continued, "An average person's mind is forever occupied by his wandering and imaginary thoughts. So naturally, their lives are bound by the qi of yin, yang, and fate. We cannot deny the fact that the fate exists, but only ordinary people are bound by it. Fate cannot be bounded those who cultivated great kindness, because their virtues accrued from kind acts are also great that these acts will alter their original destiny for the better. The merits accrued can actually change their destiny from suffering to happiness, poverty to prosperity, and short lives to longevity. So similarly, fate cannot be bounded to those who committed great evils. When a person's evil deeds are so great and powerful, they will cancel out the fortune and prosperity predetermined in his original fate, and his life can be transformed from good to bad. For the past 20 years, you have lived your life according to Mr. Kong's predictions and did not do a thing to change it. Instead, you became bounded by your own fate." Okay, so he went on. Master Yungu went on. Fate is created by ourselves, not from others. Good or bad fortune is also determined by ourselves. When you commit evil, disaster will bound to strike. When you cultivate kindness, good fortune will naturally be on your way. Also, your entire fortune and misfortune are based on the previous lives. What you are experiencing now is the result or the effect of the previous, present, and onward causes of your thoughts and actions. In the Buddhist teachings, it is written that if one wishes and seeks wealth, position, a son, a daughter, or longevity, one can attain them. one only has to cultivate kind deeds in order to escape the control of fate. This is interesting because someone I knew who couldn't have any children and went for an adoption of a child, then he was able to have his own child later on. Okay, since untruthful speech is one of the greatest offenses in Buddhist teachings, we can be assured that these are not lies. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas certainly have no reasons to deceive us. Liao did not quite understand what he meant by attaining all that one wished for. And so he asked the master, Mencius once said, whatever is sought for can be attained. The seeking is in oneself. This referred to inner qualities such as virtue, kindness, and morality. These are all qualities one can work towards. However, when it comes to outside factors such as wealth, fame, and prestige, how can we seek and attain them? Don't these have to be granted by others in order to be achieved? So the master replied, Mencius was correct, but you misinterpreted his meaning. Huineng, the sixth patriarch, has taught that all the fields of merit are within one's own heart. If one seeks from within, one can be in touch with all fortunes and disasters. The outside is merely a reflection of the inside. By seeking within ourselves, we can not only attain the inner quality of virtue, kindness, and morality, but we can also attain wealth, fame, and prestige. If wealth, fame, and prestige are embodied in one's fate, then one will attain them even without having to seek. If they are not, then one cannot attain from even through plotting and scheming. Therefore, if one cannot reflect within his own heart, but instead blindly seeking fame, fortune, and longevity from external sources, then the seeking will be in vain. Mencius once said, 则求之有道，而得之有命矣. In seeking, one should follow the right path. In attaining, one attains what one's destiny entitles him to. Whatever is attained in the end is still part of one's own fate. If one tries to seek these qualities from the outside, and even goes to the extent of committing evil deeds for them, then one will not only lose one's inner qualities of virtue and kindness, but predetermined fortune as well. Furthermore, evils committed in one's greedy mind to obtain more will often reduce the fortune of one's original fate. From this, we can see that no benefit is derived from blinding seeking. Okay, so Master Yungu asked if Liao Fan deserved imperial appointments or a son. He actually is very honest about this. And while I was reading through, I don't even know how to, like, there's certain things that I won't even be able to observe right away. So let's see what he said here. So Liao Fan said, I reflect upon my previous deeds and attitudes in the past for a long time. Then he said, no, I don't feel I deserve an imperial appointment or a son. Those who receive imperial appointments all have the appearance of good fortune. And I do not work towards accumulating virtues to build up my fortune either. I'm very impatient, intolerant, undisciplined, and speaking without any restraint. I also have a strong sense of pride and arrogance. These are all signs of scant fortune and non-virtue. How is it possible for me to receive an imperial appointment? So as we can see, he already self-reflected like that so quickly. Okay, so next we'll see why Liao Fan has no children. Liking cleanliness is a good thing, but it can become a personality problem if one gets too immaculate. Right, immaculate. Okay, that's okay. So there's an old saying: "Life springs from the dirt of the earth. Life springs from the dirt of the earth, and water too clean often harbors no fish." Okay, so here we go. So he told him all these. The first reason why I feel I do not deserve a son is because I am addicted to cleanliness, resulting in a lack of thoughtfulness for others. The second reason is that harmony is cultivator of all life, but I have a quick temper, gets mad easily, and easily become angry. Okay. The third reason is based on the principle that loving kindness is the basis of reproduction and harshness is the root of sturdy. Like you can't get infertilized, something like that. Okay. I overly guarded my own reputation and cannot sacrifice anything for the sake of others. The fourth reason is that I talk too much, which wastes a lot of chi energy. The fifth reason is that I also delight in drinking alcohol, and that depletes my spirit. To remain healthy, one must not sleep during the daytime and stay up through the nights. The sixth reason that I do not have a son is my habit of staying up nights, not knowing how to conserve my energy. Aside from these, I have many, many other faults, which are too numerous to mention. Okay.
At least he's honest.
Yeah, he's such an honest person. Okay. Master Yungu said, Mr. Kong had predicted that you will not receive an imperial appointment or have a son. We can think of these as a decree of heaven, but even that can still be changed. You only need to reform your ill ways, practice kind deeds, and work to accumulate merits and virtue. These are your own transactions to create fortune. No one can take it away. So, okay, so don't know why it's this now. Okay, all right. So Liao Fan understood and believed in the master and paid his respects to him in gratitude. Then he began to repent of all his past wrongdoings, whether large or small, in front of the Buddha image. He wrote down his wishes to pass the imperial examinations and vowed to complete 3,000 meritorious deeds to show his gratitude towards heaven, earth, and ancestors. He keep a daily record. Diary? Yeah, it's a diary, right? It's a daily record of the kind and evil acts he committed. I don't do that. Do you guys do that? Like to write down what did you do bad, what did you do good? Okay, so anyway, so he told him that bad deeds could neutralize the merits he accrued from good deeds, right? Okay, so I think it should be this one now.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so repent, right, and complete 3,000 meritorious deeds, and keep a record or diary of the kind and evil acts he committed, and he recites mantra it's a when you do that, it's a way to train, your mind to be concentrating and to be concentration. Sorry. Okay, so this reminds me of myself many years ago. I went to a 3-day Buddhist temple retreat in Taiwan, and one of the days morning activity was chanting the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva, so Guanxin Pusa. So all we did at the time was you keep repeating her name or his name, right? And I don't know how long later, but like, let's say a few minutes later, right? I noticed that everyone was crying around me. Everyone was crying around me, and including myself. Okay, and I remember the energy at the time was so strong, from the team chanting, and it felt like I went through some kind of cleansing, right, and felt refreshing afterwards. Okay, so Yungu, right? Master Yungu said you can also learn the proper way to practice the art of a written mantra. All right. The secret behind writing mantra is the absence of thought from start to finish. In the process of drawing, one must not give rise to a single improper thought. Again, 先把万缘放下，一尘不起. That's what he said. Even kind thought have to be let go of. All right. Mencius stated in his principle of forming destiny that there is no difference between longevity and short life. We should see everything with eyes of equality and live morality regardless of good or bad times. Okay, so he went on and told Liao Fan, a wealthy man should not become careless in his thoughts and actions because he is rich. A poor man should not resort to committing evil deeds due to his poverty. In either case, one should keep to one's place in society and be a virtuous person. If one can practice morality regardless of conditions, then he or she will surely change a poor life into a prosperous one, and a prosperous life into an even longer lasting prosperity. One should also look upon long life and short life equality. A person who knows he is short-lived should not think, I'm going to die soon anyway. So there is no point in being virtuous. I should steal and kill for my benefit while I can. Instead, one who already knows he has a short life to live should be even more diligent in cultivation kindness, hoping to gain a longer life next time. And perhaps his or her merits from practicing kindness can even elongate the present life. One who is long-lived should not think, I have all the time in the world. It doesn't matter if I do some evil once in a while. We should know that longevity does not come easily and should be cherished and used to cultivate even more kindness and virtue. Otherwise, you may very well use up your longevity all too soon. If you understand this principle, then you will be able to change a short life into a long life through virtuous behavior. How do we misbehave in the first place? Does anybody know? Misbehave meaning, not having a good thought or just misbehaving. Yes.
When we are not well, first it would be true principle, ignorance.
Right. We didn't know. Right. We did not understand. and the most important thing is really from our body, the form that we, when once we're in this mundane world, we became the form. We're the form itself. So from remember the 6 roots, right? Our eyes, our nose, ears, mouth, our touch, like the sense of touch, all that. That's how everything began. So it's from the 5 senses and the mind. Okay. But we know that life and death is the most crucial issue of one's life, right? Okay, so let's jump this one. So one who wishes to cultivate himself must do so day by day, and be mindful of his conduct every moment, ensuring that no transgressions are made. As for changing one's destiny, that depends on the accumulation of merit, seeking for a response from the heavens. When cultivating the self, one should be aware of one's own faults and resolve to correct them, just as incurring a sickness. Perseverance is required, and attainment comes when one's practice matures and ripens. In that case, one's destiny will most definitely change for the better. We should work toward severing. That's it's cut off. Severing all bad habits and thoughts. Be quiet. We quite. Quite. Wait. Be quiet. Okay, be quiet. An accomplishment for the true benefits of these teachings to be felt once you reach the state of no thought. Even at his time, he is encouraged to reach the state of no thought. So Master Yungu said, the actions of worldly people usually follow their thoughts. Whatever has to be thought is not considered natural. I know that you are still unable to accomplish the state of no thought, but if you practice reciting the mantra continuously, it will help you to overcome scattered thoughts in the mind. When you recite, you must not think of reciting, but recite consciously and diligently without any attachment. When the reciting becomes second nature to you, it will be effective. Efficacious. Yes, efficacious. Okay. So, here's to me, here is reciting our the 5 words. Okay. When we do that, and it can help us to get rid of the scatter or the distracting thoughts. Right? You can try that. It works for me. Okay. All right. But the essence of the practice can only be understood after you practice it. Okay. All right. So here. So Liao Fan went on and said, "Oh, here, these are his cultivation experience. His name used to be Xuehai. Xuehai was given by the Zen master Yungu, which meant broad learning. But after receiving these teachings from Master Yungu, he changed it to Liao Fan, which means transcending the mundane. Yeah. It signified his understanding of the fact that destiny is created by ourselves, and he did not wish to be like worldly people who allow destiny to control them." Okay. So from then on, he began to to be constantly aware of his thoughts and actions, and he was very cautious and careful in whatever he did. Soon he felt quite different from before. In the past, he used to be careless and lived his days in distractions and had no self-discipline at all. Now that he found himself being naturally respectful, careful, and conservative in his thoughts, speech, and actions. He maintained this attitude even when he's alone. He knew that there are spirits and gods everywhere who can see, his every actions and thought. Even when he encountered people who dislike or slandered him, he can take their insults with a patient and peaceful mind and not feel compelled to quarrel with them. Remember, Liao told us this is to help us to remove our bad karma debts, like Liao Tai mentioned the last class as well. Okay. Okay. So the year after he met Master Yungu, he took the preliminary imperial exam in which Mr. Kong had predicted he would come in third place. Amazingly, he came in first. Mr. Kong's predictions were beginning to lose their accuracy. Okay, so now here are Liao Fan's cultivation challenges. Although I had corrected a lot of my faults, I found that I could not wholeheartedly do the things I ought to do. Even if I did do them, it was forced and unnatural. I reflected within and found that there were still many wrongs in my being, such as seeing an opportunity to practice kindness and not being eager enough to do it, or harboring doubts when helping others in need. Sometimes I forced myself to act kindly, but my speech was still untamed and offensive. I found I could contain myself when sober, but after a few drinks, I would lose self-discipline and act without restraint. Although I often practice kind deeds and accumulate merits, my faults and offenses were so numerous. They seemed to outnumber my good deeds. A lot of my time was spent vainly and without value. It took me more than 10 years to complete the 3,000 meritorious deeds I have vowed to do. At least he's very honest. Very detailed, very honest. I'm like, I can't, I gotta go back and do this myself. Okay, anyway. Okay, so he said he was not able to dedicate the merits from these 3,000 kind deeds at the temple until he returned to his hometown his hometown in the south a few years later. Then, okay, so he finished his 3,000 merits, right? Then he said he made his second wish, and that was for a son. So he vowed to complete another 3,000, good deeds. All right, so a few years later, his wife gave birth to Tianqi. Actually, Tianqi's name is also interesting. It's actually, I think it meant qi is like asked for. So he asked the god to give him a son. So it's Tianqi. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the second wish was completed in 4 years. The 3,000, that's because, let me go back. That's because he actually had his wife helping he was able to complete that another 3,000 good deeds. So this was finished in 4 years. Oh yeah, so the way that he records those deeds, he actually has them on paper. It's like stamping. It doesn't really say what deeds are, what good deeds that he did, but then he will know, okay, I did one good thing, 1, 2, 3. So really counting to 3,000. Okay. So once again, I made the dedications, this time in our home. So at the same year, he made his third wish, and that was pass the next level of imperial exam, the 进士 level. I also vowed to complete 10,000 meritorious deeds. Instead of 3, now it's 10. Okay, so after 3 years, he attained his wishes and passed the 进士 level. I had also made the mayor of, so he made a mayor position in this area. So while in that office, he prepared a small booklet to record his merits and faults and called the Book of Disciplining the Mind. That's to help himself to avoid selfish and improper thoughts. Okay. With that, the 10,000 meritorious deeds, it was very difficult for him, and he actually was thinking that he couldn't accomplish that. So he actually had a dream, and a heavenly being came to visit him. Okay, so he told him, when you became mayor, you reduced the taxes on the rice field. That was a great kind deed, and that deed itself was worth 10,000 merits. Your vow is already fulfilled. He didn't believe it, so he actually he was having doubt with his dream, so he went to see another master to confirm his dream, and this master said to him, when doing kind deeds, one must be true and sincere, and not seek any rewards or act with falsity. Right? Then one deed can indeed be worth the merits from the 10,000 kind deeds. Besides, your act of reducing the taxes in the prefecture benefits more than 10,000 people. You have relieved the suffering of heavy taxes on all these farmers. The fortune you will gain from this act will surely be great. So upon hearing his words, he was overwhelmed with gratitude and immediately gave a month of his salary for him to take back to his temple. Okay. Okay, so number 20. Oh. Mr. Kong had predicted that he would die at the age of 53. However, he survived that year with no illness through, and he did not ask the even without asking the heaven for his long life. So when he wrote this, he was 69. He has lived 16 more years than what was designated, right? But he actually, so he wrote this when he was 69 and he died at 73. That's 4 years later. Okay. So here says destiny is not set, but is only created and determined by oneself, right? So here are these are 6 ways of contemplation. Let me just check. Yeah, okay. So these are the 6 ways of contemplation. It's a way to tackle problems from its opposite side. So Liao Fan said, when mindful of the past, we should spread the virtues of our ancestor, and when mindful of the present, we should conceal the faults of our own parents. This is what Mencius said as parents. So 父为子隐，子为父隐, right? So it translates as parents caring for children and children caring for parents. When mindful of the nation, we should think of how we can repay its kindness to us. When mindful of the family, we should think of how to bring about virtue. When mindful of the outside, we should think of how to help those in need around us. And when mindful of within, we should prevent wicked thoughts and improper actions from arising. Okay, so these 6 contemplations are positive ways to cultivate good character. Running out of time, so this is just lesson 2.
Oh, so you have to do the next one. Well,
It,
another three
it's
lessons.
pretty long. I spent so much time to finish the whole book, and it's anyway. I'll try. Okay, so he's very detailed. So it's not a bad idea to read and understand what he's talking about.
Right.
And these are very fundamental actually, and very basic. And then a lot of time we don't really think that way, but it begins that way. So lesson 2 is ways to reform, and it's so important because like I said, it's a lot of things I never thought of it. So how can we be free from faults when we were not born as saints and sages? Confucius once said, "One with faults should not fear to correct them." So after Liao Fan spoken with the ways to create destiny, he proceeded to tell his son about the 3 ways to reform. First, one must feel shame. Second one must know second one must know fear. And third, one must have determination and courage. If we are mindful of correcting even the tiniest mistake, then large wrongdoings will naturally be avoided. We agree, right? Okay. Think of all the ancient saints and sages whose names and teachings have lasted through hundreds of generations. There were people just like us, but why is my name tarnished and my reputation ruined in just one lifetime? Oh God, it's terrible. Okay, so I find that it is because I overindulged myself in material pleasures and have been badly influenced by the polluted environment. I also secretly do many things I am not supposed to do and think others won't know about it. Sometimes I disregard the nation's law. And am not ashamed of it. Without realizing it, I stoop lower each day until I am no different from an animal. He's really honest. Okay. There is nothing else in the world which calls for more shame and remorse than these behaviors. Mencius once said, "Shame is the greatest and most important word in a person's lifetime. Why? Because one who knows shame will put forth his best effort in reforming faults and will eventually attain sagehood or become a saint. One who cannot comprehend the word shame will be unrestrained and immoral. This person would then be just like an animal." These are really key words to reform your faults. The second way to reform is one must know fear. What are we to fear? We must know that the heaven, earth, spirits, ghosts, the gods all hover over our heads in observation.
三次
三尺
举头三尺
举头三尺有神明. Yeah, that's what's coming from. Okay. They are different from men. They are different from men in that they can see everything without abstraction. Okay. Even when my wrongdoings are done in the place where nobody's around to witness it, the heaven, earth, spirits, ghosts, and gods are just like a mirror, clearly reflecting all my faults. If my offense is serious, then all kinds of disasters will befall me. If the fault is minor, it will still deduct from my current fortune. How can I not feel fear? Every moment, is this the right one? Okay. Every moment, even when I'm in an empty room, a place with nobody, the spirits and God watch over me very carefully and records everything. We can try covering up our evil doings from others, but the spirits and gods can see through to our hearts and know our every action. Ultimately, we cannot deceive ourselves. We would feel embarrassed and dishonored if others happen to see our misdeeds. Can we not be constantly cautious of our every action and fearful of the consequences they might evoke? Buddha once said, "Be aware of one's thoughts. Heaven and earth know what you are thinking, even as just one hidden thought." Right. So this is from Lecture Liu's lecture, right? So Lecture Liu did mention about the Yin Wei and Sen Du, right? And Yin Wei is describing as our hidden thought, where we don't normally can detect it easily. All right, that's where we have to be the most cautious about and try to notice it. Okay, and Sen Du, right? That Du itself is Du Yu. That's our Buddha nature. That's the essence. Okay, and Sen is be cautious. So, or I should say the awareness. So there's a saying, 故君子必胜其独也.
Shendu, what I understand is when we are by ourselves, we have to be careful of our thoughts. No?
The Johnson did mention that a lot of people thought what that means,
Okay.
but he said in at least for the Buddha nature study, the Du is representing our Buddha nature. That's the essence. Mm-hmm.
Be
Yeah.
aware, careful.
So our essence is always aware of what's going on around us. Yeah, it's interesting. Yes,
Well, I mean,
from the surface it means what?
yeah,
That's
it
what that means. But
so
but
mind
the-
has both meanings. I mean, just the external meaning and the internal meaning.
the you call it internal meaning. That's what that's supposed to mean.
I think most of the saints and Buddha, the saint and sages, they're when they talk about Sendu is, I don't know, like
It's
when-
referring their own
Yeah.
Buddha nature. Yeah. Actually, this can be a topic by itself, though, because I found there are scriptures that talk about this from our Whitewater elder, and then also from the our Jigong Living Buddha, and it's from other. I think Guanyin also wrote something about it. but yeah, it's interesting. So I thought that when I read this, it reminded me of this, and it could be in the Tao Te Ching. It might have mentioned it in there too. Oh, I don't remember, but okay, so okay, but there's more to it. As long as a person still has one breath left, and lecture Tai also mentioned in his lesson previously, okay, then he has a chance to repent all of the repent of the most serious mistake and offenses. Does anybody remember what he said?
Putting down the knife.
There you go, very good.
Well, that's what our Guanyin Bodhisattva said.
So,
Is it Guanyin?
don't know who said it. One of the Buddhas said it. Okay, and let's see, right? It's 放下屠刀，立地成佛. All right, so how do we get there? Okay, so what? I jumped. Okay, so here it says once a person who behaved badly during his entire lifetime felt remorse just when he was about to die. He had realized his past mistakes and regretted all the bad things he had done. His heart came to a very kind thought, and immediately afterwards he passed away peacefully. This is to say, if a person can have an overwhelming and courageous kind thought at the most important moment, then it can cleanse away hundreds of years of accumulated sins. See, can you feel the kindness of the Buddha? Like, just because you did so many bad things, right? It doesn't matter which lifetimes. You have done so much bad things, but then at the last breath, you have that good thought pops up, and that's it. That sort of like cancel everything, and you can just leave peacefully.
Yeah, I mean, it's sincere.
Yeah.
It's really sincere.
It's amazing.
It's
I
just-
get like goosebumps.
Yeah,
Like-
you can be forgiven for
It-
after the true repentance. Just like Jesus, the one thief who was crucified next to him. He kind of repented,
Hmm.
and so then Jesus said, he can attain salvation.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Yeah.
Right. So
That's why 物质成佛.
Hmm. yeah, I can feel the like the forgiveness is so it's not something that one can imagine. It's immeasurable. What's that? Compassion? Could be. One of the four immeasurable minds. Okay. So this is just like how only one. Oh, here's another interest. So this is just like only one lamp is necessary to bring light into the valley that has been dark for 1,000 years. All right. Therefore, it does not matter how long one has been sinful, or if the offenses were newly made. He or she is the surpassing person as long as they are able to change. So here remind me of the Buddha say, 千年暗示一灯即破. So as long as you have that one good thought, that's it. Everything is lighter. It lit up. Yeah. All right. So. Oh. So but at the same time, the afflictions were never existed, right? It was because our lack of wisdom, our ignorance, right? We became lack of wisdom, and we became ignorant and don't have the proper right view. So though we make mistakes, it is good to correct them. But don't think it's all right for you to do bad things now because you can always repent. Okay. Later. This is definitely not allowed. If one commits a wrongdoing purposely, then the sin is even greater than before. Besides, we are living in the tumultuous, thank you, and constantly changing world. Our body, being made of flesh and blood, is extremely perishable. If our next breath does not come, then this body will no longer be part of us. By then, even if we did want to reform, we would not have a chance to do so. Okay. Also, when a person dies, he cannot take any worldly possessions with him, for only his karma and virtue stay. Therefore, when you commit evil, your retribution in the physical world is a bad reputation, a name which will last for hundreds and thousands of years. Even filial children and loving grandchildren cannot cleanse your name for you, whereas in your afterlife you might end up in hell suffering immeasurable pain. Even the saints, sages, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas you may meet cannot save or help you from your consequences. So how can one not be fearful? Okay, the third way to reform is one must have determination and courage. A person who hesitates to reform his faults is one who really does not want to change, but is content with what he can get away with. His willpower may not be strong enough, making him afraid to change his wrongdoings. For reform to take place, one must use all his efforts and resolve to change immediately. One should not doubt or wait to reform one's faults. We should not postpone our resolve to change until tomorrow or a day after. A minor fault is like a thorn sticking into our flesh. Ouch, right? And should be quickly removed. A big fault is like a finger bitten by a poisonous snake. We must cut off that finger without hesitation to prevent the poison from spreading and taking our life. That's very serious. Okay. So, if a person can follow the three ways of shame, fear, and determination to reform, then his personality will surely be transformed, just as a thin layer of ice is melted by the sun's rays in springtime. One's fault will always disappear when dealt through these three ways. Okay. So there are also three methods of practice in helping one reform. First is changing through action based on matters. Second is changing through reasoning. And the third is changing from the heart. Since the methods vary, so do the results of change. Okay, so let's look at the first one is changing based on the matter through one's behavior. For example, if I killed living beings in the past, I now vow not to kill again starting today. If I was angry and yelled at others in the past, I vow not to get angry starting today. This is how a person changes and refrains from repeating the wrongdoing by vowing not to do it again. However, it is 100 times harder if you force yourself not to do something than if you just stop doing it naturally. If you do not approve your faults, but merely suppress them, the faults will eventually surface even if you have temporarily stopped doing them. Therefore, the method of changing based on matters through one's behavior cannot help you get rid of your faults permanently. Oh, oops. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Oh, is it time? Okay, I'm sorry. I said I said anything wrong, I ask for God's forgiveness and everybody's corrections. Thank you.